is James Harden. I told him, like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, just be yourself. Like, freaking go score the ball, be a playmaker. He's been trying to play make a lot. But at times, like, I also wanted to be aggressive and look for his own shot.
But this is sparks from Joel Embiid's appearance on Draymond Green's podcast. And in that podcast, he talks about how he's been telling Harden to be more aggressive. And if you look at the last few games, Harden's kind of struggled to shoot the ball. But he's kind of, since he's been on the team, he was averaging about 22, 11, and 6. He's being kind of more passive, not being more aggressive to Harden that we see in Houston. But what do you make of Embiid saying that he's telling Harden to be more aggressive? What does that mean to you? Do you think that Harden is being passive and he should be more aggressive?
I mean, when most people think of aggressive, they think shoot more. I could see a little more playmaking, picking and choosing his opportunities in transition. I don't want James to just take shots and take a bunch of contested shots. Like I don't want that. Being aggressive, but that also takes a lot of energy. And so I personally think fewer minutes, more attempts, more aggressiveness goes hand in hand. So I think if we want him to be a little more aggressive, you got to pull the minutes down a little bit more.
Yeah, Tej, when you watch Harden, what comes to mind to you as far as a fan just watching James out there?
I mean, so last 5 games, for instance, 4 of which against playoff teams, so that does matter. He's not just going against bottom feeders. He's shooting 32% from the field and 27 from 3. He is averaging over 20 points, so it's not it's still good. But again, most of those are coming from the free throw line. I think he has at least 10 free throws in every game he's played with us, except for 2. And those are the 2 he actually scored under 20 points. Go figure. 1 we lost to the Nets, which was just an absolute disaster. He had 16 and 11 in those 2 games. So it looks like, and maybe I just didn't watch enough Harden. He just doesn't like, and even if they're open, he just doesn't like the mid-range. He just doesn't like shooting them. He either lays it up or 3. He's like a Morey analytic, wet dream. He loves just shooting a 3, a step back 3, or going in, which I have no problem with. Problem is, he's just so reliant on free throws, and as we've seen in the playoffs, they don't call it as much. Like his free throw attempts go down in the playoffs, and it happens every year. And I just don't want him to be either settling for a step back 3 or 10 of those a game, or just relying on shots. So I am worried about not only the playoffs and shooting less free throws, but just in the future, because like you saw guys like LeBron and Kobe, for instance, they got leaner as their careers went on, because they knew, to stay with these 22-year-olds, I have to be faster, leaner, quicker, more agile. And it seems like almost Harden's the opposite. He's gotten slightly more out of shape almost every year. And I'm not saying he's out of shape, because he's obviously in great NBA shape, but it seems like you need to get more leaner as you go along. And if we're going to give him a 5-year deal, I mean, it does worry me for the future. I'd like to see him take a little more time and get a little more lean so he can keep going. I mean, because like you guys said, it takes a lot of energy to do that. He dribbles and dribbles and dribbles, and then gets to goes in and drives 20 times a game. It's a lot, man. And I'm worried about him in the next 3 to 5 years, unless he's in peak shape.
Yeah, Eric, are you worried?
I mean, that's always a concern when guys get older, 10 plus years. I don't think it's just a situation where, you have James, but I think that's a concern for a lot of people. But I see it from a standpoint that that's where adjustments has to be made. I mean, yes, you spoke about, Deja, you spoke about James having to make an adjustment, but I think the team do too.
Yeah.
Getting another primary ball handler in there. So where now James can have some plays where he's actually off the ball. So I think that, so were you worried about James? You got to be worried about making that happen too. That's where Maxey has blossomed this year, and he's able to have success. So I think a lot of his success right now that he's having with James was the fact that he was able to play a primary role before he came. So he's still confident. He's still playing well, but he was a primary ball handler. So when James goes out, we can give him the ball. But I think sometimes we got to give him the ball when James is in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, So now you take pressure. So now if you got your weak side defense, if Maxey has the ball, is James Harden, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. So I just think you got to kind of do some different things, and that's where Tobias getting more shots and being more aggressive. I think all of that comes into play for James having to do less and the burden not be so high on him and Joel, but at the same time pulling those other guys up. And that has to be, like I said before, sometimes it just doesn't happen. It has to be strategic. You got to kind of force it and make it happen.
And I saw it a couple times last game too, because it's usually been Harden taking all the attention, driving, and then kicking to Maxey, and Maxey's already sprinting while that defender is coming back to him and trying to get back to him. It happened a couple times last game where it was the opposite. Maxey was drawing the attention through to James, then James just darted for the rim before that defender got back. I think he had an and one, or he had a couple easy layups, open layups that way. I would like to see more of that, where it's someone else taking the attention and then giving James an easy roll at it instead of the opposite, because it always seems like James just bringing everybody to him, and he has to decide between trying to get an and one or passing it off to someone who's open. So, yeah, for sure. I kind of compare it to the Suns, with an aging Chris Paul. He's had Cameron Payne to kind of take that pressure off him a little bit, and they even play together sometimes where he doesn't always have to be the guy facilitating the entire offense. I think he definitely needs someone.
I mean, but Booker has the ball in his hand sometimes too.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they kind of both have the ball handling responsibility. So Chris is the great point guard that he is, but he still doesn't have that burden of having the ball
always
all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You kind of get that, secondary or, third primary ball handler. I think that'll help.
Yep.
Yeah. What's funny is you say the whole aggression, like how most people take aggression, means shooting, where it's like when I listened to Embiid say that, I was like, oh yeah, he wants Harden to take more shots. So it's interesting to hear you take that a different way, Eric. It's always great getting the NBA insight, man.